So let's talk about something about what happened today in the market so far. It's 10:41 a.m. So we're already at that point where, what hasn't happened by this time, we won't assume it's going to be some relatively strong conviction on anything. All right. So again, we came into today, we took our trend short, trend long, we plotted them on our chart here and here, right? We plot our trend short as green, our trend long as red, because if if we break this trend long, we're gonna get rid of this level here, right? As we always discuss, that's going to go away, and then we're going to be in a positive trend or a green, right? So this trend short is going to start to move up with the market and follow the market, right? Now, important things to note. We opened the day, right? As you can see, we were setting some, right? So lower low, lower high, right? Similar lows here, lower high, boom, broke a lower low, right? So we had a bit of a downward structure closing out yesterday. So we opened the day with a change in character, right? Or a change of character here. Um, First 15-minute candle closes, then we plot our levels, right? So after the first 15-minute closes, then we get our trend short, trend long. We plot those, and we're looking for the potential breakout. Now, as we were approaching this level, one of the first things I did was I went over to FinViz and I went to the screener. Right, let's just start all over. So go to the screener. I say I want to look at the SP 500, and I want to know, well, how much of the SP 500 is having a relative volume over one. All right. Now it's about 338 now. So a little over 60% of the index is on higher relative volume right now. If you don't know, relative volume is the ratio between current volume and the 3-month average intraday adjusted volume. Okay. Now, when it's all said and done, we have over 60% on above average volume. So if you're approaching a point of resistance for you, and you're approaching it on above average volume, and you cannot break out, right? That was a sign of like sellers being able to absorb all of the buying. That was your sign, right? That sellers were able to pick up on that buying, right? Now, this doesn't mean that they can absorb all of the buying all day, but in that moment, as we tried to break out, right, sellers could handle the right, they could handle the demand, right? So in this particular case, in other words, you had more supply than demand to start off the day. Okay, how we end the day is another story, but for now, that's what's going on. So you're getting a lower high here, and you know this is now a lower low, and potential another shift coming in here. Okay, so you're here at this point right now. All right, so you're catching what we look at is pretty much a descending triangle is how I look at this, right? And so the downward driving force usually wins, but we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Okay. Now from here, You can keep your eyes on the relative volume and all that for the day. But from here, we also check our net trade sentiment and our delta imbalance. This is our options flow. And our options flow is also negative for the day on QQQ. We've checked all of our sweep orders, right? These are your ISOI orders. Right? You see ISOI. We have 9 sweep orders for the morning. You can refresh the page and see if there's any more that's come in. All right, let's just type it all in again. ISOI. All right. So we've had some more. We had some more orders come in, obviously. Now the delta imbalance actually grew, but the net trade sentiment became a little less negative, right? So this is largely what we've seen. What we've seen is people looking for. Right, we've seen people looking for like longs for the day, but shorts for next week. That's what seems to be going on. So you can interpret that as part of what's happening right now. Approach resistance on higher volume, right? Which suggested that there were you know there was a lot of activity at that level. And if you can't break through, it suggests that the sellers are absorbing that buying that's going on. Right? You push lower, you start to approach your next key level to the downside. You set a lower high. You check your net trade sentiment, your options flow, and you realize that the delta imbalances to the downside, which is your should be your bigger impact. I don't know what's going to happen by the end of the day, but also that your sweep orders are showing calls for the day, but puts for next week. All right, so that's a pretty interesting dynamic. It's not giving us a lot to go off of, in my opinion. Is what we really want to see is a breakdown below this level if it's going to happen. That'll work, But now here we are, setting a similar low, like we're, almost as if we're about to bottom out at the low of the day here. I don't know what's going to happen there, right? But everything seems to be pretty shallow breaks, right? A failure here. Your lower high here was very shallow, right? The distance between here and here is pennies, right? You rally up, right? So your next high is your next lower high is just around this area here. So again, you got a lot of weaker movements happening in the market today. So although there seems to be a lot of volume, right, it seems to be on the more of the accumulation and distribution side of things, right? Which one we're dealing with will be determined by how we close out the day, right? So we close out the day to the downside, and we were clearly in the midst of some distribution, right? If we end up closing the day back to the upside, we're clearly in the midst of some accumulation. Now, you can see SPY approaching its level here. All right, opened up higher this morning, pushed. Same thing, got close to breaking that resistance, could not, has been forced to the downside from there. Sellers are able to absorb. Sellers are able to absorb this buying activity at this point. Okay, so again, we're just gonna have to wait and see. Now, if the market is able to rally up, right? And get back above this key level here. That's going to be a good sign. Okay, that's going to be a good sign. If we break below this level here, right, I'm going to be looking towards this area right here as an area where that's gonna provide some more conviction. All right. So that's what I'm seeing here. All right. That's why we're not in a position right now. Okay, because you know you have a weaker higher low, you have a weaker lower high, you have zero conviction here, right? But if we can get back above this key level, see that nice little spike in there. If we can get back above this key level here, and also break our key level to the upside, that could work. Maybe finding some support here towards the end of the day and pushing higher. Okay, cool. For breaking through this area here, I want to see us fall below this point, right? And that's what we're looking for. All right. Shout out to shout out to Algin for the gifted sub. You know what it is. It's Friday. All right. We're gonna start calling it Free Sub Friday, Alvin. We got Nelson being gifted with the sub here. Um, you know, just as Alvin always says, man. Pay it forward. Make sure you're inviting your people to the stream and giving them an opportunity to learn as well. All right. But anyway, so that's what we saw so far today. So this is just a demonstration of how you use these key levels, and you can see we stop on the dot at this key level with higher volume. Okay, so these for the pro pivot indicator. All right, these trend shorts and trend longs, these key levels are 100% on point, especially after that first 15-minute candle closes. Now, I'm gonna say this as well before I top off this recap here. What you want to do here, is let me get rid of these other levels here. All right. What you want to do here is confirm what's happening with other elements. So a new high on the day, breaking this right here with a higher low would have been better, right? But now that we've already set a new low on the day, when we break this high, I want to see a higher low above this element and then pushing up. Now I'm looking at the 5-minute chart right now because I know we need that higher low, right? And it's better to look on the 5-minute chart for an intraday higher low, right? So you want to keep that in mind. Same thing down here, yes, this is looking like a decent, solid move that's starting to build up, but a break below this is not going to be enough anymore. All right. It's already 11 a.m. So I need a break below this. Right. And I need another lower high to happen below this mark and start to fall. And then I want to be in that trade. Okay. So the later in the day that we get the signal, the more we want that confirmation. Right. Don't get me wrong. As I told you guys before, indicators are more accurate later in the day. This is true. But at the same time, signals, see, indicators are more accurate later in the day, but signals can sometimes be weaker later in the day. Right? And indicators and signals are two totally different things, guys. Okay? Indicators and signals are two totally different things. So indicators can be stronger at the end of the day, but signals can be weaker at the end of the day. All right. So keep that in mind. Matter of fact, here we go. Look right here. right? Boom, right? Clearly a signal of a downward move, right? But I mean, clearly that was pretty weak signal because if it was a great signal, then we'd be down here, not up here right now. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind, man. All right, just keep that in mind. All right, so that's just a little recap of how to use the bullish and bearish key levels for your pull pivot indicator.